Okay, we've got about 2.5 hours until we run into that rollover period. So it's Monday, April 8th, 2019, and we're looking at the euro dollar 1 hour time frame. So we had a continuation breakout signal candle. I'll go ahead and put that resistance level in here. So last week's high, last week's low. Here was our breakout candle a few hours back. This was the continuation breakout signal candle. Things are pretty compressed here, just so that you can see the overall bigger picture here. I'm going to go to the daily time frame, show you the daily time frame. We talked about this over the weekend, that it looked like the euro dollar was going to bounce. We just needed to see some follow through on it, and that's exactly what we got a few hours back. So I'm going to switch here and go to the euro dollar chart. And again, I made a video on this one. We talked about it. This was the daily time frame. So here's where we left off with those charts, that video and that analysis on the daily time frames. We were talking about the pound dollar and the euro dollar, and this one's a little bit different, obviously, in regards to the support and resistance levels, and that it retested that level back there. That was April 2nd, and then we had that bullish engulfing candle the day after. Now we're just waiting to see if it's going to break out of this range or bounce off of support. So I was talking about the trading strategies that I use. Excuse me. Generally, I'm going to be executing trades with breakouts or reversals at support and resistance. Now, we're obviously looking at a daily time frame, but I just want to see with this chart that price is going to go in the direction that I expect it to, based on everything that I'm talking about here. Candle patterns, tests of support and resistance, divergence in the indicators. Now, to identify the reversal pattern here, even on a daily time frame, I'm going to be using that other chart that I showed you in the previous update, with the daily chart, daily time frame, different indicators. There are indicators that I use to identify and help me confirm reversals at support and resistance, and there are other indicators that I use to help me confirm breakouts. What we're looking at right now is the breakout charts. I'll show you that in, again, just a minute on the 1 hour time frame. So I take this data, I take this information, I can see what's going on here in the daily time frame, and then I translate it over here to the 1 hour chart. Now, I'm switching back and forth between colors here, so I don't mean to confuse anybody, so now I'm going to go back to the other one. This just happens to have a black background on this chart for this 1 hour time frame on the breakout for the euro dollar. Let's go back to the original chart that I showed you here. So this is the 1 hour time frame. So taking what I see on the daily time frame, moving it over here to the 1 hour time frame, waiting for that breakout. If everything remains constant, everything remains consistent, our targets would be 86 and then 22. 1.1322 would be the final target. Relatively small stop now that we've got this retracement, but to see, I'll go ahead and open this up, to see a retracement and a pullback to the level that it broke out of, which is last week's high, isn't uncommon. And I would expect that maybe over the next couple of hours, as we approach the rollover, it could dip down one more time and bounce and move back up. So very often when I'm trading with my coaching students in the chat room, when we see that kind of behavior and we see retests of breakout levels, one of the things that I'm going to be doing is walking them through the way I approach it, which is to be paying attention to what the market's doing, not what I want it to do. So on a pullback, obviously I don't like that. Nobody likes pullbacks. Nobody likes to see their account moving negative. You want to see the trade consistently moving to your take profit level. But it doesn't work like that. We've got to give the trade sometimes a little bit of time and some room to move around and to do its normal course, its normal price swing method, and the way it retests certain levels. So as it's doing that, one of the first things that I want to notice is when it retests some of these levels, are the candles holding above resistance or below it? Are things starting to break down? At that point, I would then switch to the reversal charts with those reversal indicators and start looking for information as to whether or not the trade's going to continue in my favor or if it's likely to fail. If it's likely to fail, if it looks like the whole trade's just not going to work, even though I use a 55 pip stop loss, I don't have to let it run into the 55 pip stop loss if I can identify that something's wrong with the trade, and then I'll cut the trade off. So we could have maybe a 20 or 27 pip loss on a trade like this. Now, I'm not saying that the trade's over with just yet. It's not going to work. We're negative, I believe, 5 or 6 pips here on this trade. At one point it jumped up to about 73, still waiting for it to pick up momentum. Again, I'm still thinking that it's going to dip down one more time and then move back up. However, again, whether it works or whether it doesn't work, I've got to leave it alone. I have to let the trade work itself out. again, if it starts to break down and I can see and identify and confirm that it's starting to break down, meaning that it's not going to work in my favor, then I'm going to cut the trade off. Again, I do not have to let it run into my 55 pip stop loss if I can confirm that it's not going to work. If everything's going to work just the way we expect it to, we've got some extension targets up here. The final one here, based on this A low, B high, it's a little bit choppy in there, but it's a pretty consistent weekly low, weekly high. Last week it was in a relatively small range for the entire week. These dots right here separate each week. So you can see it's a pretty tight range here for the euro dollar, but this is and would be one of the final targets that if price continues to trend higher on the euro dollar, I would look for opportunities to continue to trade it to about this level, which is approximately the 1.1370 area, maybe 65 area right in there. It's not uncommon or unlikely that it could move to these levels. It's just a matter of watching economic reports, waiting for comments out of the Eurozone, maybe something to do with Brexit, as there was over the weekend. Some Eurozone members were making comments about Brexit. So being aware of that helps to gauge that consistent movement in my direction, or if it's likely to break out. If I see, or break down, if I see a lot of negative comments that are going to impact the euro dollar in a negative way, meaning that it's going to start moving back down lower, and then I see that confirmation technically, again, I could close the trade out. But this so far seems to be a trade that's working out just the way I would expect it to. It's taking a little bit longer. Sometimes with these continuation breakout trades, as you see here, you'll see the breakout occur with news. A lot of times I get the continuation breakout trade during the US session, so with US economic data, and then the trade will continue to move and it'll hit its 55 pip take profit level all within about 2, maybe 3 hours. But today's different. That's not what really drove this anyway. Today's different. It is Monday, so it does this sometimes on Mondays. I usually refer to it as a typical Monday. Another trade here that's just sort of going sideways. I'm going to go over here to the dollar Swiss. So the dollar Swiss started to break down, but this range is pretty small to trade it as a continuation breakout trade. And now it's just choppy. It's just moving around. It doesn't mean that it won't go any lower. I want to be aware, at least on this time frame, these lows and highs, we're still making, at least for the week, lower lows and lower highs. I just want to make sure that this is going to continue before I really try to take any position on this pair. The pound dollar, I didn't take a trade yet. I haven't yet. I'm not really too sure what to do with this one. I can see some levels that are breaking down and continue to remain bearish. They're really not taking out any key resistance points from last week. So until that happens, I'll be looking for opportunities to sell it. But I don't know that I'm going to get into a trade after the rollover. And then here we have the dollar yen. And to me, I really haven't done any work on this chart yet. There's last week's high. The previous week's high and lows are relatively, for the most part, they're pretty important to me and my strategy. It doesn't mean that I always get a chance to use them. It's just that I need to be aware of them. Sometimes, again, just like with that euro dollar on the daily time frame, this could approach resistance and eventually give me an opportunity to sell it. I just don't know when that's going to happen, and it could move sideways for a little while. So I haven't taken a trade here yet. I see that small little bounce right there with all of that divergence. But when I saw that earlier, I wasn't too excuse me, I wasn't too sure that it was going to continue to some of the take profit levels that I would normally trade it to anyway. The close of that candle with that reversal right there is at 41. Price is sitting here at 52. These ranges are pretty small. This is, in my opinion, just scalping opportunities, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time scalping and waiting for 7 pips or even 4 pips and have it take 9, 10, 12 hours to earn that much money. It's just not worth it, in my opinion. I don't usually scalp. I did in the beginning of my trading career, but I don't do that now. I'm going to be waiting for bigger, more reliable setups that are going to develop during specific times when the rest of the market's going to be participating, and I can expect a bigger overall move, earning anywhere from 17 to 30 or maybe even 55 pips on the trade. So that's it for the update here. We're going to wait and do another update after the rollover and take a look at some of these trades in the daily time frames as well.